and I had some Yeezys on.
Have you worn Eagles shirts every day this week?
Yep.
I thought so.
And earrings and shoes.
Can you
I know
see
her
yourself
too- I know her too
Socks
well.
and shoes.
I can see myself. It's
Perfect.
kind of weird.
I have to do it that way, otherwise it's
Enjoy
down by your
it.
feet.
Alright.
Nice shoes, but I don't think anybody wants to do that.
Okay. My name's Paul. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
So who hasn't met me before? You have not. You have not. You haven't either. Everybody else.
We just met. That was it, though.
And we just met.
Just.
Okay. So I work for a company called Laurel Life. We do a lot of different things, mostly in Pennsylvania, but we do some like Girls Inc. stuff in Maryland. So that's pretty cool. A lot of community wellness things, so like psychiatric clinics, outpatient therapy, in-home therapy, and then a whole ton of stuff inside of schools. So I mainly work with school district systems and trying to help kids that are really struggling to figure out their life and be students and dealing with all the stuff that comes with them. So I deal with a lot of parents and a lot of things that I see across the time, and I've been in pilot for a long time, so that's why I'm here. And I don't know what else. Is that good?
Great.
That's great. I don't like talking about myself. So that's what I do. Okay, it's fine. We're going to talk about poverty today and how it impacts our brain and our body decisions and all that good stuff, and why a lot of the people that you work with are here. Okay, and it helps us understand a little bit more on how to improve brain function, decision making, what we can do to help that. Sound great? Okay. So we talked last time a little bit about like changing some things that you wanted to do with reward-based stuff or meeting people where they are, all that good stuff. So I'm interested at some point today to have that back and forth conversation to see how we're moving with that. If you're not, I get that too, because life's busy and it's crazy everywhere. I totally understand. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do today, this is relevant to our poverty thing. Okay, so poverty has a lot to do. Our brains really like exposure. Right? We really like to see new things, and when we see new things, the next time we see a new thing, our brain says, "Oh, I went through a new thing before. I can handle this." So the more times you do that, the better your brain is. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? So you can imagine if you are experiencing poverty from the time you were a baby to the time you were an adult, do you think you have a lot of exposure of the world that you're surrounded with?
No.
Right, because it takes financial something to get somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I probably referenced this study earlier in one of our talks, but there's a study called 3 Block Fathers. And it's about parents or dads in Harlem who never left 3 blocks from their house their entire life. So imagine that is your exposure to the world. Right? Well, how would you look at the world differently than we do? Right? If your boundary was the, 7-Eleven on 161st Street, and then, the halfway house at 163rd. That's where you've been. Mm-hmm. And you're 26, 27, 28 years old. Right? How would your world be experienced? How would you experience that world? Okay? So we're talking a little about exposure. And the first thing we're going to do today is learn about our exposure and put it into perspective in a fun way. So everybody's going to stand up. Yeah! Remember, part of my life is engaging people, so deal with me. Okay, you guys are going to do all the work here. I'm just going to sit and watch. We're going to make a line of everyone starting over here. And you are going to figure out who has traveled the furthest. So in one trip. So let's say I have gone to Columbus, Ohio. Oh, that sounds terrible. I never want to go there.
I'm from Ohio, so you better watch it.
I'm just saying that
watch where you go there.
as like a Penn State guy.
Right.
I want nothing to do with I was there like one time, no thanks.
No.
I don't need to go back.
Exactly.
I don't want to go back to Ann Arbor ever again. No interest. Okay, but so like I would I would talk with each other and try to figure out. You could use your phones if it's like we're not sure, because like I don't know what's closer, Hawaii or like Turkey. I have no idea, right? Because you're going this way. Maybe it's not that far. It's okay. But this is the point of this is to see everybody's life is different. So let's go. Figure it out.
I've been to Hawaii. It's not further south.
You've been to Hawaii?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's probably pretty darn far.
Yeah, I've been to Aruba. It's my longest.
I've been to Aruba too.
But I'm like not flying.
However you guys want to sort it out. That was just my example.
Let's do PA to Hawaii, because
Okay.
that's gonna be pretty far.
What do you need from?
Has anyone been out of a country like to Italy, any of that?
Washington State.
No.
I've been to Jamaica, but I think Hawaii's probably further.
Yeah.
Where have you been out of the country?
Puerto Rico.
That's the furthest I've been.
Okay,
So if y'all been further than that.
so let's just find Hawaii.
That must have been nice.
I drove from
She said
California.
that
to
must have been
Maryland.
nice.
2000 to Maryland.
So that's further.
Four
than
thousand
my
seven
Aruba.
hundred and eighty-three miles, so it's almost 5,000
I
miles
think-
to Hawaii. Anyone think they've been further than that? 5,000 miles, yeah. So 26 hours.
Puerto Rico.
So you're first.
Yeah, Puerto Rico's.
Are we doing the?
Are we
furthest?
doing it all, or like, do you have to do furthest, everybody, or just find the furthest
Everybody.
person?
Everyone has to be order.
So you've been Hawaii.
Oh, I thought we were just finding one, I was doing really good one too.
You're leaving Hawaii.
You got
Okay.
the tip now. Figure it out.
Okay, so Mary.
Where you go?
She's been to Hawaii too.
Okay, so
Take
you're in
your
Hawaii
son
too.
to.
Okay. We're in Hawaii, should we know?
Cause I feel like that's.
Honolulu's what I just did was 4,000 miles.
I've been to Kauai. Hilo, I think, is probably the furthest.
Okay.
HILO.
16 or 1,615.
So I'm down.
So you're done here a little bit because Heather's been 2,600 and I've been 2,000.
What about from,
Well,
what
yeah.
about from California to
I just
Maryland?
went to
Oh,
Philly.
that's gonna be.
I just
this.
did
Okay, so you went
I actually
further
went
than
to
that.
New York.
We're in California.
I was in Los Angeles.
New York.
No.
Oh, good, thank you. Can you put it over here, please?
25, so you're right next to Heather because she's at 26.
Oh, I did
Okay, so you're before us.
You're wearing on
Oh, you could be interested.
Where were you?
2,600 something.
Squeeze another ear.
26 something.
Indiana is
I don't,
1950.
we took,
You're into.
That's
I think, because I had to take a little hopper plane.
So if you
So-
don't, so now
yeah.
that makes sense then.
You're here.
So let me see how
That's
far
what it's
away.
all about.
22.
Oh,
So what's your number?
2037
So you're,
No,
because you're 22.
years old.
And I'm 2,000. Where are you at?
16 something.
Yeah, so I'm here.
It's shy of the Washington State though.
Are we good down here? Are we sure? Do we have two Hawaiis over there?
We do, although I left out of New York and I went further out, I think, in Hawaii.
There you go. That's furthest then. Excellent.
Where are we at here?
California to Maryland.
St. Lucia.
20.
Yeah, but I was in a British restaurant, so I
Yeah,
was.
so you probably were. Can we slide down a little bit, guys?
I did not think that.
Cat.
You need more.
All right.
We did decent.
Hawaii.
Yes.
Heather, right? And what place are you at?
Washington State.
Washington State. Yeah, it's like weird because you gotta go like a little bit, right?
Los Angeles.
L.A.
On the British Virgin Islands.
Okay.
St. Lucia
So
and
the
probably
US.
the U.S. islands out there.
Cool.
Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson, and what's your name?
Joan.
Joan. I was gonna guess that, but I don't want to insult you. Yes. Joan Park. Got it. Okay. Aruba,
Puerto Rico.
Florida.
Florida. North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay. So let's talk about this. If we had your clients down here and we lined them up here, what do you think we'd have?
couple states worth
Yeah.
of travel.
A lot in Maryland,
A lot in Maryland. It wouldn't be,
PA,
maybe, right?
West
Maybe,
Virginia.
maybe they dare to go to
Cumberland.
Pennsylvania.
yeah.
Hagerstown.
Cumberland.
Cumberland.
Just
The
like
hospital
Baltimore.
never left.
Baltimore.
maybe
I'm
Virginia.
guessing.
West
Ocean
Virginia.
City, down that way.
There's other places.
Some of
I think
them maybe have never left Hagerstown.
True.
we don't
Right.
get a lot of plantations.
There are some bougie ones here
There
that
are some
travel
bou-
more places than I have.
Yes, and that's interesting too.
Mhm.
So there's like that dichotomy a little bit, right? Where you have true, like folks that have limited exposure and have found their way to needing significant your help, to people that have lots of exposure that have found their way here. And I think that, do you see their personalities different?
A little bit, it depends.
Just curious.
It depends.
Okay. All right. So I do this one so everybody can like figure it out. You guys, and I like to judge teams this way too, because sometimes I get like a lot of people that are like in charge positions, like school superintendents, and I do this, and it takes them like an hour to figure out because they would just want to boss each other around. It's hilarious.
We
I'm
just
like,
left the two bosses. So
Yeah.
their phones
Yeah, we
are-
did.
that's kind of what happened though. It was good. But I mean, you guys were all talking about it and you worked it out together. And that's okay, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So that's whatever it is. Okay. So exposure is super important. It prepares our brain for what's going to come next, and we're ready to do that. So that's a big thing when we talk about poverty because they don't get out often. Right? Think about the experiences that you've had in just your life. And it might not just be this trip, but you're okay going somewhere. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What are your clients okay going somewhere? Are the individuals you work with okay doing that? Do you think there's a level of anxiety with that?
I think for some,
I think it depends on where they're going.
yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we're like, hey, do you want to go to Cancun? I mean, I think they would sign up in a heartbeat.
You would think, but they might not.
They may not.
Right? We don't. Who knows? That could be like an overwhelming. Like, I don't want to get on an airplane.
That's true.
What about how do you travel? Like, I can't figure out like the signs, like boarding airlines, all that stuff. Right? That's overwhelming.
And passport.
Passport, right? Like that's a
Putting on a
process.
bathing suit can be overwhelming to people.
Yes.
I'm not lying, we've had hiking trips.
It can be.
What?
To ask them to go
What
on
do I
hiking
have?
trips, right.
What do I wear? Do I need sunscreen for Cancun? I don't know. Yeah, you do.
You should.
Right? You better. You're like on the equator. You're going to roast. Right? So all of these things that we just take, oh yeah, cool, we're going on a trip. I know exactly what to do. They haven't experienced that one. And when we talk about poverty, there's like this cognitive overload. Because there's so much that come with it, and we're going to talk a lot about this. So much that comes with not being financially settled or stable, that it's hard to be where you're at right in the moment because you're worried about everything else.
Oh, you don't have to explain that to me.
Yes, and we've all been there at some point in our life, you know, young, old, whatever, in the middle, right, where you're like, eek, spent a lot of money that month, right? But that's a good way, but we have to look at that ourselves too. That's like our own bias, right? If we're able to hold a salary down and make good financial decisions, we've never felt that cognitive overload where we can't make the next decision next. And we're stuck. It has a huge part in it. Okay? Thank you for your participation. Have a seat. Yes, please don't. I am not ever going to stand between people and food, so go ahead.
Yeah.
I went like 6
Kylie, oh my God.
What happened?
Look at the pizza, all of it. Every last one of them.
They don't do.
Well, I didn't take it or deliver it,
pictures of
so
it.
there's that.
Take pictures, we'll take pictures of it. You didn't order it?
Some
I
of
didn't
it-
make it and I didn't deliver it, so I can't be responsible for it being flipped
I
over.
definitely would be calling DoorDash.
Did you order it then?
I don't have my camera.
That's all. If you take pictures of the refund money, that's all I'm saying.
I thought you were trying to say like, I have any irresponsibility in that.
I don't.
I was like,
I was saying, I need to show myself that the refund money.
No,
Oh.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I was concerned about.
I can't eat this one.
That's good.
It's when I try to do
You right there, Sam?
Just keep your finger in
You should go all the way to the next.
Oh, I'm gonna get some. Looks good though.
Yeah, what
Just a little disheveled.
I feel like it always winds up that way anyway when I take it apart.
Why not? Because they said they can't find it. From where? Like, look at the or
It's like old, so I'm insane.
Bethany? I know.
No, it just has search for
It was
different
all like
It's like that, that's like that, that's what I'm thinking, she just.
Kate May.
It looks like they dropped off.
That's crazy. Brigantine.
It's alright.
You want me to stay at my house?
Yeah, there we go.
So you guys can stay wherever. I'm not paying a dime. I'll stay silent. Oh, yeah, for sure.
I can't talk on me. I can't, never mind. I can talk on me. It's not a pleasant sight.
Because I'm allowed. It doesn't look that hot. Make that.
I know, it was something I didn't know.
Okay. No pressure.
It's her first day.
Welcome. Let's put you on the spot. Come on up here. Your turn.
We're on the spot.
No, come on, you're gonna be up here with me today. You'll be fine. That's exciting. Happy first day to get to meet me. Jeez.
Memorable.
Memorable, that's right. Okay. We're gonna go, there's a million trillion billion things on the association of poverty, addiction, brain science, all that stuff. So if you're like uber interested, just like start Googling stuff. Makes more sense. I am just going to cover very little bits of it today to make us aware of the circumstances that some of our clientele have. Cool? Okay. First thing, remember when we talked about how our brain works? I always have to go back to this because that is our springboard always, right? Do you remember we have the amygdala and the hippocampus in our brain? Remember that's like our cave person brain? It likes to grunt, right? And it takes over all of our smart thinking, right? All of our prefrontal cortex. I think your dog had a big forehead, you said? Because it was smart to build a spaceship? Just kidding. But like dogs and deer don't have big foreheads, they don't have the big smart part of the prefrontal cortex brain, right? Dogs can do fun things, but they're not like speaking, reading, writing, building. True? Cool. Deer don't do that either, right? They don't have the big prefrontal cortex. Okay? It's not Disney Channel. Right? So, when we think about how that brain operates, how our brains operate, and how it moves forward in this cognitive overload piece with poverty, right? That's our caveman. It's another way to say the caveman, cave person, cave woman brain is running the show, right? It's living on survival. It's living on how do I just get my next maybe meal? How do I make this payment? What do I need to do to get this done? And we're trying to work with these people to overcome significant life challenges, true? Do they sometimes come to you disengaged? Meaning, I don't want to be here.
All the time.
Yes.
All the time.
Okay. Do we do, and I'm just asking this question because I honestly don't know. Do we do like biopsychosocial on our people, so we know like their history and their social makeup and where they're coming from, right? I'm sure.
Yes.
Right? That information, then understanding maybe where they come from, maybe that is a lifetime of living in poverty. Okay? And we're going to talk about what that means as they grow up through that and how it's impacted them right now. Okay? Okay. Let's keep going. Studies show the more severe the poverty, the worse the long-term memory is. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then back to that cognitive overload piece, can drop IQ as much as 15 points, as you would expect. Okay, so IQ is a very it's okay to judge people's intelligence by IQ, but it is one way to judge that, and that's like your processing power. How fast can I take information into my brain and understand it and do something with it? It's essentially your IQ. Okay. Do you see when you're working with clients, like slow decision making?
Usually fast.
I was gonna say, usually it's impulsive, they
It's
don't
just
even think
impulsive.
about it, they just do it.
They haven't worked through that.
Just doing it.
Right. They're an access to hand it all.
Right, so that's just we're just bypassing the IQ altogether. We're saying this in a lovely way.
But I
Right.
think when you're looking at like lifestyle changes and things that they need to do to better themselves, that decision making is slow. Like when they're looking at job searching or
Those high level executive functioning things, right, where it's my future that I'm planning. When we see this, this is going to be our like overwhelming theme today. That planning piece, that getting myself calm enough to make sense of that later, struggle. Right? We're real good at making quick decisions that don't mean anything. Right? But they've never had that practice, that experience to get through that long-term thing. When I work with like high school kids, right, that have come through poverty, and I ask them what they want to be when they grow up, what do they say to me?
I don't know.
Right, I get the shoulder shrug of the okay. Let's trying to get them just to be able to entertain that thought is a struggle. The behaviors start then. They start wiggling in their chairs, tapping, and they might just like storm out, throw a book around the room or something because they haven't accessed that part of their brain and they can't do it. It's not there. They're so overloaded with everything that they've been experiencing through their life and where they're at. Okay? A lot of times what they see also is that frontal lobe that we talked about is actually underdeveloped. Right? So it hasn't worked. It's not as efficient as the people in this room are in our life experience and being able to look at things and make a good sound decision at the end of it. Yes, man?
No,
Not yet?
not yet.
Is it brewing?
Yeah.
Yes! Just don't let it like blow.
I won't.
Okay. I'm just kidding. You can do it.
I know you are.
It's okay. We'll get there. Okay. Low income hardship is worse when the child is younger. It's going to break down. So we talked all about this right when we were talking about our brain development and through the years. And I know that you guys all work with adults, and this is my thing. We have to remember where they started. Right? Super important to look at what they didn't just become an adult and start making bad decisions. Right? That's all the research says. This has been a lifelong of struggle for a lot of our people. Okay? And that's part of our empathy that we have to grow too. Right? You're having a bad day and you're making my day hard. You've had a whole lifetime of bad days. Right? So we have to think about that's what keeps us going. Right? In those bad days, be like, okay. They go through a lot. Right? Let's check that out. On the flip side of this, it's not as much impactful if they've already developed. So if those critical windows of brain development that we talked about, remember this, brain open, brain closed, right? Those critical windows of brain development, if they've gone through that without experiencing severe poverty, you're going to see the impact lesser as they're older. And that makes total sense, right?
Right.
Look at that. You guys are brain scientists now. You're doing it. And here we go. Living in poverty lowers than empathy due to exposure to violence. How many of the women that you work with were exposed to violence in their life? Living in poverty increases your exposure to violence, period. Being exposed to violence lowers your empathy. So what's empathy? How would you describe it?
Being able to relate, like, be able to, like, if you're sad, I can feel that you're sad.
Feeling with others,
Yes.
right? And not just being like, and not just saying, oh, you're sad.
Right.
Right?
Like,
But
you
like,
get it.
oh
Like,
my
I get it.
gosh,
Oh my
right?
God,
I'm
you're
here.
sad.
I'm here
Right.
for you. I'm sad with you. You have that ability to do that. This is very diminished in people that have experienced a lot of violence and a lot of poverty. You guys see this every day, I think. Do they care what their bunkmate's doing? Their bunkmate's having a bad day?
Yeah.
Are they empathic that way? Right? If one of your coworkers is having a bad day, do you guys feel it? Right? You try to join with them and be like, hey, let's do this together, all that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Right? But we see that in some of our clientele, people that we work with, that's not as high. Fair? Okay. We have to talk about the brainstem nerd. Right? To reiterate this kind of stuff, that frontal lobe again controls our attention, inhibition, and emotion that affects complex learning. Do you have academic stars in your groups here?
I'm actually surprised sometimes.
I'm not saying it's a general blanket statement. Okay, so how many clients attended college?
A handful started, maybe we have one or two that graduated at this point, but a couple of them started or went to vocational school. But a lot of them didn't graduate high school.
And again, it's a combination of things, right? It's a combination of what they're dealing with during that time, who is there to help them, their life circumstances, and it's all starting here. It's actually all starting like in utero, right, in the belly. And it just begins. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. It's pretty fascinating. It's terrifying, okay? So that frontal lobe, again, that's our high level thinking, but then we have the other stuff too, the temporal lobe, important for memory, language comprehension, learning simple things like the alphabet, right? If you were to talk to some of the parents, the kids I work with, right, where are they at in learning, right? I remember sitting with the second grader who could not write the letter A. I'm like, first of all, why are you in second grade, bro? Let's start over, right? But this is what happens. They get pushed along, and that's where it goes, right? But that's part of it. So then, think about where that kid is now, right? He's probably like a senior in high school, and he was up 3 years behind in just understanding the simple concept of writing a letter. The first letter, the one you see everywhere, ABC, right? The first one, struggled, right? So all those things, it's damaging, and it's not just because they're choosing to do that, right? That's, again, we go back to that. They're not making the conscious choice to say, this is what my life wants. I want my life to be. Right? They're making choices that are leading them down this road, but it's not like a well thought out process of here's what I'm going to do. It's very impulsive, like you mentioned. That was very like those split second decisions are happening. Okay. Our hippocampus, again, remember what that was like, a horseshoe that sat around our amygdala and it talked to each other, it reminded you of bad things, and told your amygdala to react, right? The bear in the woods, that kind of stuff, right? Process our spatial contextual information, tied to long-term memory and functioning, so it remembers those emotional things longer, and poverty impacts that also. And again, we don't need to, I'm not going to go too far into this. I know a couple new people, but that's okay, you'll catch on. Our amygdala is like that cave person brain, like the Hulk. It's my best example. If we're familiar with like the Big Green Hulk, right? He's a super smart scientist, right? Using his prefrontal cortex smart brain, and then he turns into the Hulk smash, and that's all he does, right? Hulk smash, uncontrollable, just, that's your amygdala, essentially. Okay, running the show, just keeping you alive, trying to survive, okay? Now we're going to talk about a new part of our brain today, because it's tied with pleasure-reward pathways. Why is that important in the addiction world?
That's the one you're trying to have fun with, the pleasure reward pathway. That's the one you always wanna keep going. Woo.
Okay, absolutely right. So it's the fancy word for that is called your nucleus accumbens. Okay, and it's like right here. You can't see my thing. This little green thing, and it kind of has attachments to all sorts of areas. Okay. When we talk about the nucleus accumbens, it's our pleasure-reward center of our brain. Impacts of play impact development and function later in life. Okay. And when we want to look at this, dopamine is the essential chemical element needed to create a new habit. You heard the word dopamine before? That's our happy hormone. Okay, why have you all heard of dopamine before? I'm just curious. That sounded like everybody knew what I was talking about, so I want to
I
hear
learned
more.
about it in school.
Same.
Okay, so what do you know about dopamine? Share with me.
It's a neurotransmitter, and we
Mm-hmm. Cool.
That's what makes you, like, if you're deficient in dopamine, that makes you depressed, right?
Dopamine and serotonin,
Could
all
be.
the things that you're happy about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just some challenging research to that now too, which is exciting. Uh-huh. Where they're not sure if it's really those two things causing depression. Look it up. It's amazing.
I'm making a
Fascinating stuff. It's happening. It's the 21st century of mental health. Okay, so I gotta keep my stuff in line here.
dopamine was a drug.
Essentially, it's your body's own drug. It is. It's your body's own drug. It makes it.
All right, who's on dopamine in here?
You are all the time.
Okay.
This is the drug she's on. Kyle likes it.
When we talk about the nucleus accumbens and dopamine and what happens, so who plays like mobile games on their phone? Okay. So like the real generic ones, right? They're kind of all the same. Like they always have these like War of the Worlds and like Wizard and Warcrafts, whatever. But it's all the same kind of setup, right? You have like levels that you have to level up, Candy Crush Saga, right? All those are all the same, where they're designed specifically to hit your dopamine levels. Like that's how they're brainwashing you essentially is how their algorithms work. Yeah, see?
They are.
Yeah. So let's think about how they work though. How do those games work? You start, and what do?
Make it really easy.
Real quick.
Real quick.
And you're like, ooh. And they're like, oh, hey, free stuff.
You get
Oh, hey,
rewards, and then you want to keep going back for more.
Yeah. And then what happens is you like level 20.
You're gonna start
Here,
buying
you
a
can
bunch of stuff.
It starts slowing down, and it gets harder and harder and harder to get to the next level. And that's when they slip in the, 20% off. It'll get you to level 50. And it'll cost you $6. That's it. And billions of people go, yep.
I'm one of them.
There you go.
That's when you stop playing for a while and then you go back and it's easy again.
I was gonna say, and then 2,700 levels later, you're like, what did I do with the last year of my life?
You take off that screen time tracker on your phone because you just don't want to face reality.
I built a whole city in 2 years.
I got a spa, I got the Commerce District, I got everything.
I'm the mayor,
You're the mayor.
governor, and president.
this, okay? It's the pleasure reward center brain. So those games tickle that part of our brain. And things that we do in life tickle that part of our brain. Pizza, what you're eating right now, your body's saying, go, sweet. Right? And you guys just watching that walk in, your body sent out the dopamine thing and said, ooh. Yes, I can taste it. Right, but it's the hit. It's the hit. So impacts of poverty impact development and function of this region of the brain that we see later in life. This is where you see the impulsive, habit-forming issues with people that have experienced poverty. Their dopamine reward center is a little out of whack. Give me an example of what you guys see, how you see that in your work.
Like it being out of whack, or how they
got there.
However you want to share.
As soon as they start working, they generally spend at least the first, if not the 2 whole first paychecks, just on shit.
Dumb stuff. Their nails.
Amazon packages galore.
Amazon,
So many
Ipsy.
ways.
On bad habits.
Like forget the phone bill this month, forget I needed money for cigarettes.
I really
Instant
needed a new pair of
gratification
shoes.
reward.
Really needed this hoodie.
Instant gratification rewards.
Thrift store shopping.
See, these are great examples that you're sharing. This is what I want to hear.
And the amount of money that they spend.
Terrifying.
I'm
sure.
I'm really
That's
concerned
why
about
if
tax
you
time.
Really like those sneakers because, you know, you paid $100 or whatever.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
$100 for shoes. Hell no. Well, I just walk in them. They wear out anyway. It doesn't matter if I spend 100 or 50.
Die when you get dirty.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah. This is some of my kids in school. They can't get the creases in their shoes. They walk around like this. I swear to God, it's a real thing.
It is.
Can't crease my shoes. Oh my God. One day you're gonna look back at yourself and hopefully think you were ridiculous, but maybe not, right? So dopamine is our essential chemical element needed to create a new habit. So this is why it's important that we disrupt this pattern of reward system as best we can and teach them a new way. The challenge. This is why your work is hard and nearly impossible some days. Let's get real.
So
Yes.
are you saying they lack that chemical? That
No,
dopamine chemical?
they have that chemical. It's just used in a way that's out of whack. That's the best way I can say it. The way the hits that they're getting have been so immediate for certain things habitually through their life that that's what they seek now is instant gratification versus the longer.
Because they have like the normal stuff growing up, and we all have to know that that's like a normal level, and that this is excessive.
Right, like think of when we were developing kids, we wanted the quick gratification too, right? We wanted the stuff. We wanted the things. We still kind of do, right? But like now as I get older, I get like buyer's remorse more than like I'm happy when I've spent a lot of money on something, right? I get something, I'm like, ooh, did I really need that? Right? So I'm like, I finally got one. I was like, I don't really know if I really needed that now. Right? It changes a little bit because you get more maturity, your life experiences, and all that stuff. And I'm not overwhelmed, cognitively overloaded with poverty thoughts in my brain and everything that's disrupted my life right to now. So where was I before I started that? I don't either. We talked about dopamine.
Making better decisions.
Making better decisions. We talk like remember when we were kids, right? Give me an example of what something you wanted. And this goes right into the next one too, I think.
A bike. Sneakers. Bike.
A bike, yeah.
I wanted wings.
You wanted wings.
Yes.
To fly.
Yes. I wanted
Narrow wings,
That's
like
cool.
I
what do you
wanted
buy?
wings.
Not like chicken wings, like wings.
Not chicken
Right, I
wings.
understand.
I wanted wings. I wanted to fly.
Okay, you never got the dopamine hit for that though.
No, I did. I went up in the silo and I jumped down in the hay.
Oh, okay.
So I flew.
You got the rush.
I got it.
Okay. So let's talk about how the system works a little bit and how we want to think about how we can structure what we do with the clients that we work with to make the system work better for them. Okay, let's think about Christmas Eve when you were a kid. Assuming everybody had like the movie time Christmas Eve, right? Where you go to bed in super anticipation, right? And you're like listening for Santa. And then you wake up the next day and there's a bunch of stuff under your tree, right? Let's assume that's happening to all of us. Okay. Are you getting a lot of dopamine Christmas Eve or a little?
A lot.
A lot.
A whole lot.
A whole lot. And you go downstairs and you open up all your presents. And then what happens?
Done.
Goes down.
Boring.
You
crash.
Right? Body's dumping all that good stuff. And I know my kids want to make it go on again. Where's my next hit? Maybe Santa hits something upstairs. So they go and start running around and looking. Right?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, right. And then thank goodness, Grandma's coming to town like tomorrow, so bing! I can keep them alive here for this day, right?
Grandma.
So that's our traditional reward pathway, right? Where you need to go boom, 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 then you get it, and then it goes away, right? So how do we reset this nucleus accumbens for the people that we work with? I do this with kids all the time because their reward pathway is really screwed up because they're still developing and still trying to figure this out. What do? How do we change this reward pathway?
You're finding to reward yourself, right?
We just reward positive behavior.
Oh, figure for the
Set
kid.
goals to reward yourself.
Sure. So the nucleus accumbens wants to be randomly reinforced. So a pattern reinforcement doesn't work. All right, this is where all my behavioral analysts look at me like I'm out of my mind, but it's absolutely true. Scheduled reinforcement does not give you the same dopamine hit
No, it's not
as
much.
random reinforcement. So imagine if Christmas Day was any day,
You never knew.
you never know when it was coming. And it happened like 7 times a year, right? You could like,
Fired up all the time.
right, you could go to sleep and your kids would say what?
God, they might be coming.
My God, it could be Christmas tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you do it just
Then
enough
go to bed.
that it might be the next day, right? You don't say, oh, it's every week, because they'll catch on to that and your body will adjust to that. So like it could be like 2 Christmases in a row. Or it could be, you might have to wait a while, and then it's boom, and it's coming, and they're getting us hit. It changes that reinforcement level. So let's apply this to what you all do as best we can. How do your folks that you work with be reinforced? We talked a little bit about this before, I think, right? Like what do they earn for good behavior? That's reinforcement.
I mean, we continue to encourage them, keep doing what
Okay.
they're doing.
But don't they get like privileges?
Well, they get
If they're doing well, they move up through the program a little quicker generally. than
Okay.
People that aren't, and with the higher phases comes more privileges.
Okay.
And then Diane has that rewards program that
Yes,
they get so many things, they
go-
get a reward, and then if they keep a job for 90 days, they get a gift card.
Okay. So that is a very okay thing to do. My challenge to you all here as like the next step is how do you randomize that a little bit more? Right? I know. It's hard, but but we have to think that way to get that brain to work in a different way. Because it's planned. The way that their brain works, the way that our brain, persons where this part of the brain isn't working right, we talked about this, they're very impulsive, right? So it's very hard for them to say, I have to be good 1, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. They can't get that far, right? They're good for 2 steps, and then they mess up on the 3rd, and they can't never get to the 4th because their body, they're not getting the reward. They can't see that far ahead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, how would that work with a population as big as ours,
Mhm.
when, I mean, literally the first thing, if we don't do it straight across the board,
It's not fair.
It's not
it's not
fair.
fair.
That's
Right.
what I was, that's the
Should've said
mentality
that.
is someone got something I didn't get and that's not fair and I'm working just as hard. That's what I just said to Kylie 2 seconds ago.
I don't have all the answers here, ladies. I'm just
Well, you should.
presenting
Well,
you
you-
the
well,
science.
You told us to start doing it, why can't you tell us how to do it
Well, it's
exactly?
not, Kylie didn't tell us I'm going to tell you how to do your job.
We'll
She's
talk
like,
about this later.
Tell them more about this. Tell them more. Right, but these are like the seeds we want to start thinking about. Like this gets us to that next step. Okay? So let me give you a kid example, because that's just what, we all know kids. We know how they act. I'm a kid sitting in a classroom, and I have to be good by Friday. If I meet all of my points by Friday, I get fun day. I can watch a video. Remember, that's how they used, that's how schools used to do it. Those are called bad schools now. Because that doesn't work. Because little Jimmy here, in his little reward center pathway brain, cannot see to Friday.
Right.
He can see to next period. So little Jimmy's sitting here, and we're not rewarding him for what he's doing right now. It's like, thank you for sitting here quietly, whatever reward we're giving you. And he goes, boop, dopamine hit, thanks, no problem. Boop, dopamine hit, thanks, no problem. Boop, dopamine, all right, cool. And all of a sudden he gets rewarded throughout the week, and Friday comes and it's the same thing. We just keep rewarding him. We work in the rewards throughout the week. We don't wait to the very end. Because what would happen? What typically happens?
You mess up on
Yeah.
Wednesday.
He messes up on Wednesday, then how's Thursday?
It's worse.
Yeah, don't care.
Screw
Don't
it.
matter. Right, it makes
Friday.
total sense. But there are, I guarantee, Hagerstown City, or what's the county school system? Washington, I guarantee you, every emotional support classroom operates that way. I promise you. What's that? Yeah.
I have a child with behavior problems
See?
with IEP and it doesn't work.
Yes, I know.
But in the same aspect, we
It's
have reps.
just predictable.
I was gonna say, we have reps, and our clients know that when they hit 5, they're in house restriction, so they will take the hits all the way up to the end.
Don't take it to 4.
Right.
And then hang there.
So that's almost like negative reinforcement.
Right,
exactly.
Right,
So how do we look opposite of that?
right.
Right, that's the trauma-informed care word. It's flipping that paradigm. It's saying, I need to notice the good things that you're doing and reward you there instead of, we're still holding accountable, we're still having consequences, but we are way heavier on the good stuff that we want to see.
Right.
It takes
What-
a total shift in mindset to do that, and you have to start rewarding for the most insignificant little things, because some of them need that.
To the point where it feels absolutely absurd.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where you're like, this is a joke, why am I doing this? And then you're doing it right. That's what I have to tell my staff all the time too. Like when little Jimmy's
Well, like,
sitting
what
there,
is the reward then? Is it just saying,
Well, that's
it's
what I'm
just,
like-
it's just saying, cause I mean, we don't have a plethora of finances, so you gotta
Right.
think, is it just like you're just, every time they hold a door for someone, you're like, oh, that was so nice of you. I mean, is it just being the niceties of life that I feel like we should be doing? I don't know, I'm just like,
so this is good, what we have to talk about.
Yeah.
Right? You have to
because we're
figure out.
working with adults, so it's just like an interesting.
It's a different, but it's not though.
Right, I know,
Because
I know what
people
you're saying.
still work the same way. So like, so,
Yeah, I know, right.
so like, but they buy into that. So what happens is, after the system is changed a little bit more, it stops coming with, they stop seeking the reward. Because the dopamine hits change, right? Where they're operating now is, I need that hit right now, boom, 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 boom. After you get that, you start changing habits. So like this takes a while. Like it's not like 2 weeks and everything's gonna be better. It's like month after month after month of being completely consistent and doing this over and over and over again. Because you're creating new habits. What ends up happening is the people that are getting it and doing what they need, they stop needing the rewards. They just need you to recognize them doing it.
Yeah.
So like that's that, when they get the niceties then, gives them the dopamine hit instead of the tangible reward or whatever they're working towards. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like that, then it turns into that relationship, and that's that higher level executive functioning part of their body that's operating now versus just that automatic thing.
But I think you have to be consistent with it, like, you have to make sure that when you say you're gonna give it to them, you give it to them if they did the right thing, and not wait till later.
It has to be random and now.
That's right.
So that's like your challenge as you're thinking, sitting
That's
here
what
thinking,
makes
like,
it challenging.
what can we do with adults in the moment to make them feel like they're doing the right thing?
Well, not only that, but how do we make it consistent among all the staff? Because our perceptions of things and their behaviors and what they're accomplishing are gonna be different.
Sure. Yeah, and that's just like your growth as a team, right? Like, well, these are, it could just be very specific things that you want to highlight. That's okay too.
And not only that, clients act different towards each individual staff member.
Yes.
You're not gonna get the same thing that I get in that, like Aaron gets. Like, I'm gonna get this, and Aaron's gonna get not that.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Because number one, Aaron's an executive, she's a clinical director, so they're gonna act a certain way with Aaron. But a peer support, they're gonna act different towards me. So I'm trying to figure out the encouragement, you know, letting them know that they're doing a great job, keep it up. I don't know, I mean, tell me what else I need to do, because I don't know what else to do.
And not just that, like my question
Oh,
is.
that's for us to figure out, but this is his class.
Well, I mean, yeah, but
I
also.
got you to come in here to help us. Help us. Paul,
I am helping you.
come on, Paul.
You're only gonna remember like 10% of what I say.
Not really, Paul.
It's true.
Okay, Paul.
It's true.
But what my other concern is too, is it's a 24-hour job. So I come in like day shift rewards, then the night shift, do they come back and reward? Does the mid shift come back and reward? That's 3 awards that we're giving them for the same thing. Is that what we would need to be that consistent? Because if one like shift gives it and the other one doesn't, that's favoritism for that shift. Day shift always gives it, night shift doesn't ever give us anything.
So it might be, it might be isolating more where you guys are as to what behaviors and things are you wanting to see change. And finding those, maybe 3 things, that's where you start. We want to improve these three things. And we start there. Okay. I don't know. I have no idea. The bathrooms are messy. I'm making that up.
You're not making that up.
You're not, they are.
The kitchen, right? I'm just making things, I have no idea.
You're not making anything up.
But no, I mean, but that's good. I mean, Kim
Yeah.
and Mary do it sometimes with their bedrooms, like.
Yeah, they gave out prizes to get their bedrooms clean last time.
Wonderful.
Did we?
Yes.
Kim did.
Give that prizes.
We could cut that down.
But again, when we go back to this stuff, remember that we're trying to change old, ancient patterns of behavior within a person. Think about how hard it is for you to change a habit.
It's really hard.
It's really hard.
It could be something like we all have tickets that we can get out, and you see them, catch them doing something,
Yes.
doing a ticket, and then maybe that ticket is for a raffle at the end of the week, or maybe it's for a special activity or something.
There just needs to be consistent. They actually did something like that when I first came as an intern. But being consistent about it, because even on the negative side with the reps, there's not a lot of consistency with it. You know, one person you'll see half the reps are in their initials, and then we'll go 3 days with other staff members and no reps are given at all across the board.
Let this simmer for a minute. We're gonna keep going, because I think there's a couple more near the end that'll help us get a little further, okay? Okay. But the other thing, so like, we do that too with our kids. Right? We do that with our staff. Like, we randomly reinforce our staff. Like my adults that work with me, right? I have to do that to keep them motivated, keep them going. I'll stop and like randomly deliver donuts or whatever else, like randomly take them lunch or whatever it is. Right? I'm just thinking food right now. Must be hungry.
Yeah.
Right? But whatever. Okay. What was I gonna say? I don't know. You can have your pockets stuffed full of these tickets or a little fanny pack. That's what you can do. Like all your staff fanny packs, and they all have with your little logo on it. I'm on it.
I like fanny
Yeah.
No, Kylie, no.
And you're all out, and you're just hand.
No, Paul.
Thanks for coming.
No fanny packs.
Aprons.
And then they're gonna be stealing tickets from each other.
Oh,
That was.
It's a skill.
Somebody
Make
stole
let them
tickets.
gamble it away, whatever. It's fine. It's a skill. They're learning a skill.
I mean, how about ribbons, like little ribbons, like, you know, like, that's something.
Wasn't an asshole this week?
Oh, no, like,
Participation.
you know,
It's been 0
I'm a
days
winner.
since I've been an asshole.
I'm a winner, you know.
But the consistency piece is huge, though. When we talk about our brain, it likes predictability, and if they know what's coming, it's going to calm them down and let them start using the big part of the brain again. It all works kind of together, right? So we have to start somewhere. Okay. Again, just some more on this stuff. There are risk factors for resiliency, so things that challenge us to be a resilient person. So that could be not learning or reading at a low level, having a parent that has mental health problems, having an incarcerated dad, having drug abuse in your family, mental health in your family, what am I missing out? Divorced parents, parental abandonment, all those things that happen to kids as they're young and go through life, adolescent, early teens, 20s, whatever. When you're experiencing poverty, you already have like 25 and 31. So you're already behind like that, the 8 ball, so to say, right? Where it's a challenge to get up through that. So you just have to recognize that a little bit. Okay, I like where you guys are at. We kind of already talked all about this stuff. We're just gonna keep going. I want to get to our working. So just some numbers, just for interest sakes. Okay, this is Maryland's poverty levels. So a person earning $12,000 or less is considered, like, what do you get? That's, all right, and then imagine if you having 4 kids with that income level, right? Okay. Then we have to recognize disproportionate rates for minority communities, Hispanic, Black. These are just among children from birth through age 5. Okay, so you're seeing that just born early on into it, right? And then here we go. Okay. Okay. How we can help, what we want to do. What do we want to look at we talked a little about goal setting. That's what you guys have to start with. Identify those few things that you want to look at to change. We talked a lot about relationships the first 2 times we were here, remember? That was our number 1 protective factor. People who are resilient can identify one adult connection that helped them become resilient and get past their trauma, past their addiction, past the current lifestyle that was inhibiting their growth. Right? You guys are wonderful at making relationships. I already know that. Okay, you inherently know that that's an important piece. Right? But there's those people that push our buttons. We have to find the vein of gold. Do you remember me saying finding the vein of gold and hang on to it? Right? And just get rid of the rest of the stuff that drives you nuts. Like, well, I like this person because of this, and that's what I'm going to stick with. Right? Despite all the other things that drive me crazy. Remember when we said have high expectations, and everybody's like, what are you talking about? Right? We want to set them, if we set our expectations high, they'll reach them. But if we keep them low, it's like putting a cap on.
So where does that go with meet the people where they are?
Well, you're meeting them where they're at to get them to make that high expectation. Because if you're not connecting with them where they're in the moment to make that relationship, there's going to be no expectation. Right? You see what I mean?
But we also teach
But
them
we-
that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, no, you go.
Well, I was gonna say, but we need to remember that our expectations aren't the expectations we should be setting for them. It's their expectations for themselves. 'Cause
That's
I
even
think
better.
sometimes, sometimes we just envision a client needs to be here because this client's here, and we don't look at where this person started.
That's a really good point. Thank you for sharing. Your turn.
You're doing great.
I don't know. All right, let's go.
Yes! Okay. We talked about like that. These are just thoughts that you guys can think of to improve the impact of poverty, to improve that nucleus accumbens social emotional learning strategies. What do I mean by social emotional learning? It's like this ridiculous buzzword now, but it's true. I've been doing this for a long time. Social emotional learning, what's that?
Like getting along with others,
Yeah.
figuring out how you get along.
Like pro-social bonding. Like being able to sit in a room and achieve a task together. Without yelling and cussing and getting angry and running out. Does that happen?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's never happened.
Never. Right? But those are the things that you work on. You guys are working through this inherently. But there's a piece to this that's so that you have to be so intentional with it that it's not like we're just going through the motions because it's group day, we're gonna go do some group. Right? It's why are you doing this group right now? Right? Because we want to start increasing their capacity to get along with others in this room. And if they start doing that, then they're going to start building relationships. And if they start building relationships, you're going to start seeing dopamine receptors hitting on different levels than they used to be. All kind of works together. Cool? So far? Doing okay? Okay. When we have areas of need, do you remember we talked about, again, the downstairs brain, the upstairs brain, cave person brain, smart brain, right? We have our emotional, relational, physical, and control. We need to feel connected. Again, that's the relationship piece. Are their physical needs being met? Are they hungry? Are they tired? I'm sure they're overly tired all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Why are they overly tired all the time?
A bunch of reasons.
Yeah. What's like a common one?
I mean, they don't go to sleep at normal times.
Their sleep patterns are disrupted.
Yeah.
Are their
Anxious.
eating patterns disrupted?
Yes.
Are they eating at like 2 a.m?
Yes.
Right. These are all symptoms of dysregulation, of using the downstairs survival brain versus our thoughtful upstairs brain. Right? Because most of us are in a pretty good routine. Right? You know what you're going to do when you go home tonight. Right? You kind of got that planned. If we asked, I don't know how many people do you have here now? Clients? 40. If we had 40 of them in here and asked them what they were going to do later, what would they tell us?
Well, I better know. They have the
They better
timing
know.
chart.
Yeah.
Should tell you what's on their duck.
Well, that's good. Okay,
They'll
good.
pull their sheet out and then tell you.
There you go. Okay. Cool. Well, yeah. Well, like, is that in their mind? Are they thinking that? Are they
I was
able
gonna say,
to?
But half of them will probably say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't know.
They'd
Whatever.
have to look.
Whatever my body's going to tell me to do is kind of where they're at, right? So it's all of these things all combined. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot going on with our people, and we have to remember that. And then control, one of my things, those who live in chaos, those who have trauma, these situations are out of their control. They want control somewhere, so what will they do? They will seek control where they can. And that often comes across as my most hated word in the English language, the M word, manipulation. Right? There's a scientist, Bessel van der Kolk, I mentioned him before. It's like the trauma genius of the world. And I've met him, I've sat through his stuff, I've tried to take some things from him. And one of the things that always stuck with me is that if you're using that word manipulation, you need to get out of the helping field. Because you're sabotaging yourself. Because the people that are doing things that you don't like, they're not doing it because you don't like it. Right? They're doing it because that's what their body's telling them to do. It doesn't matter if you're Jesus. They're still going to make the same decision. Right? That's a hard one to get like. Especially when they start pushing your buttons. And you're like, just make a good decision.
Well, in our literature, I mean, we a lot of the girls go to NA and AA, and in our NA and AA literature, there's the word manipulation is in there quite often. You know, because I mean, as a recovering addict, I know I manipulated every situation that I could to benefit myself in active addiction.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And
Sure.
some of them kind of still do that today.
I'm not saying so. I agree with that.
So you're saying don't say the word?
What I'm saying is the taking what they're doing personally toward you.
Okay.
As in manipulating the situation to make you
feel or do something differently than you would have normally done because of how they're what they're doing.
Right.
It's
Okay.
how
Now,
we are
are people able? So
taking it personally. Okay.
Yes, but you can even take it to the next level where I don't feel that people that are, this is just my own personal thing, and we can argue about it, whatever. I personally don't feel that people that are addicted to substances have that ability to make the conscious decision to say, stop doing this right now. So if they were able to have that conscious decision to say, stop doing this, then they can't manipulate the system because they can just stop. And that would be manipulating if they were like, at any point I can just stop what I'm doing. But they're at a point where they're struggling to make the quote other decision.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying from a person that lived like that,
yes.
I manipulated the situation for me.
Yes.
So I knew exactly what I was doing so I could get what I wanted to get, is what I'm saying. And even to this day, even early in my recovery, I was still manipulating the system to get what I wanted to get. So they still do it even to this day.
Well, they're going to do it because it's a learned behavior, and that is how they've learned over time because of all of these things to get their needs met. So us being patient when they do it, because that is how a lot of our clients have survived their entire lives.
Right.
And we just have to be patient and find, I guess what he's saying is find another way to react to it, because they know that they're doing it, but it's an impulse.
It's not malicious.
So to dive in,
I'm guessing that's where
I don't want to like
No, I'm
minimize your
I just want my
experience.
mind open to what you're saying.
So
Because I have
did
a problem
you
with
feel like you were going to die if you didn't participate in your manipulation?
Yeah, my disease told me I was going to die.
Okay, then I'm done. That's it.
Yeah.
Your brain down
So you
here,
had
our
to do
caveman brain, it responded the same way as it's telling your heart to beat.
Right, okay.
Do it.
Right.
You never had a chance to be like, that's not a good idea today. You just did it. Right? You did it. And you worked. So manipulation is tactically just figuring out how you're going to do this. And you might have done some of that. But the purity of that, every choice that you make, I'm assuming, and if I'm wrong, that's fine. From one step to the next was, I need to do this or else.
Okay.
That's that survival piece.
Yes.
Right? That's where that is. That's why to me the word manipulation is helpful.
Okay.
To like the helping field, because when people hear the word manipulation, they think that person's out to do no good. But they're just making decisions that their body's telling them that you need to survive.
Okay, I get you.
Is that right?
I get you. I'm with you, Paul.
I know. this goes to that control piece too. What can I control? I can control these things. I can't control like going to the DMV and get my driver's license because that ain't happening right now, right? But I can control this. I don't know. Okay, we seek those kinds of things. We talked about things that we could do too. Mental grounding exercises. This is you can teach your people when they're like in a calm state, when they're starting to feel anxious. What do you like to do? Like look around the room, take your deep breaths, count the colors in the room, how many windows are in the room. All of those kinds of things are super important to calm that body, calm that brain. All right, this is just review for you guys. We talked a lot about this. We talked all about this stuff too. Okay, changing habits and rewards. Here we are. Let's get there. Okay, we started talking about this already. We'll go a little bit more. We talked about the nucleus accumbens and dopamine. Talked about how those hits come and how it needs to be random and how it's a little bit haywire in our people that we work with. Cool? Okay, keep going. Establish quick recall so it's not taxing to the brain. Inhibit the cognitive overload. So, we know people with poverty, with people with trauma are coming in with a lot of stuff on their mind. Right? How do we get around that quickly to attack that piece of reward center happiness? And it's simple, and it's quick, and it's sweet. It's not that long, drawn-out process of a reward. Right? Well, you have to do this. Well, you're almost there. Now just go a little bit further, and you're almost there. It has to be that fast, instant reward, because it has to match what that dopamine level already is. Does that make sense? What we want to do is tie it to our amygdala. And what does our amygdala want? It wants to feel safe, it wants to feel wanted or loved, and it wants to be successful. So that's our reward. So, how do the women that you work with feel safe? We can work through this.
I think the encouragement, to get there.
So the safety could be like part of that relationship that you're making. You can have a relationship for probably all three of those.
They have a safe place to
I
come
was gonna
back
say-
to as soon as they go out.
I think part of the safety is they have a roof over their head, they have a bed to sleep in, they have food to eat, they have all of these things.
Basic
That
needs are
goes,
being met here.
that goes partly into just in terms of feeling safe when they get here.
So do you think their behavior outside of these walls is different than inside these walls?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
In a better way, is kind of what I'm saying.
Some of them-
Because they feel safe.
I mean, some of them do get really
Oh,
good
right.
decisions
Better
when they go out.
decisions.
Yeah.
Right, they're making some better,
Yeah.
they're not that instant response. There's not all of the other extraneous stimuli out there bombarding them. Right, that could be, okay? So like when we're developing these concrete skills, we need to keep this in mind. How do we feel safe, wanted, or loved, and successful? So that successful piece is that reward and earning those tangible things. Or just being recognized for doing those things, right? That tells that amygdala to be quiet. And the amygdala loves predictability too. So that comes with that consistency piece. So how are we being consistent with these rewards that we're doing that tie into this? One of the ones that I love doing is nonverbal cues when they're engaging in the behavior. That we like. Or they don't like. Either one. So
I'm like, ooh-wee.
Is it like training them like a dog?
that's how our brains work.
That's not verbal.
It's nonverbal. It doesn't have to be quiet. It could be as simple as like a sign where you're just pointing to it. Right, so the reason for this, the reason the nonverbal cues is so huge is because our auditory processing is diminished when we're excitable. Right, if we're dysregulated, if we're angry, if we're coming in the house and something happened outside and they're like up here and we need to get them down here, does it help? We say, calm down. Right? It's like telling my wife to calm down. I know better. But I still say calm down, but that's a beside the point. Right? You can't talk people down when they're up there. Right? So the nonverbal cues are great because when they come in, but you practice that when they're not heightened. So every time, that consistency piece, what's our expectation when you come in the house? Right? To be quiet, maybe it's like they call them anchor points. An associated something on the sign that in their mind, when they look at it, that means I have to do X. So I'm just making this up. When I come in, I know that I have to wipe my feet and be quiet. So maybe there's a sign there that triggers that point to them where you don't have to have somebody at the desk that's saying, please be quiet, remember, everybody's sleeping. Right? That's just kind of there, and that's part of that, bringing them down. Okay? And again, when we talk about practicing, it's that routine, it's that rhythm, and it's that more routine. Over and over and over and over and over. It's hard. So what are y'all thinking?
Some routines they follow, but like, so, and this is like it's like a roller coaster around here. Like, our rule is they have to be up and dressed by 8, which I always give everybody till 8:30 because that's when we have to check in. But then it meanders away, everybody starts wearing their pajamas. And like, I can give them a reminder, don't wear your pajamas to check in, or I'm gonna start giving them reps. And then like 2 or 3 days will go by and no pajamas, then here come the pajamas.
Or no bra.
So like, you gotta start giving them reminders like 20 times to get nobody to wear pajamas. So it's like, I try to do like as I call it, the kid approach of having to give you 20 reminders of don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, or the consequence comes. Before I give the actual consequence, I try your childlike approach. And like in this for like 2 days, and then here comes all the child behavior again.
Okay, so I just thought of
So
something.
that's why I giggled at the routine,
that's okay.
because it's a routine that's supposed to be taking place.
And I was thinking of something really simple, like they have to sign this book every morning. It's
Oh, the
something
binder.
like this.
Yeah. The
Every
same
person,
people.
every day, has to sign this book at some point during the day.
Okay.
But there are just people every day that she has to call down, or that she has to.
They walk by and they go.
I know you're gonna get reminded today.
That's that visual
Diane,
that you
decent
were
idea.
talking about.
I just said, how about one day we go buy donuts and only people that come in to check in that don't have pajamas on get a donut, and then maybe
Then they won't know the next time when they
So-
go away
Do
to do
that.
that.
So that's just why I giggled at some of the routine
I understand. It's
stuff.
okay. So our brain doesn't like negative thoughts. It's
I bet you
impossible to
one
do
thing,
that.
I guarantee you, if Kylie and Aaron came in here doing check-in one day, and they said no more pajamas, I guarantee you there'd be
That's
no
our
more
theory.
pajamas.
That is our
Well,
theory.
I think no.
anytime I see someone in the morning in PJs, I always ask them what they're
No,
what
because
they're wearing.
I do believe that.
Cause when I even try
There you go.
reminders,
Yes, you got a new job. Come in here, pajama police.
when I try
And we're
reminders,
the bra
I
police.
even try not doing a negative announcement. I have like the doors that slam. I try the whole, guys, it only takes a second to catch the door. You can use your hand, you can use your head, you can use your butt, you can use your foot. Like I do all kinds of
I'm
little.
sure you do.
And you
And
know
then
what
5
happens?
minutes later,
10
they
seconds
walk out.
later, the door is boom,
It's
boom,
very
boom.
frustrating.
They're not thinking about that door.
It's still like not.
I can honestly say I walk through those doors every day. I don't think about those
Yeah, I don't
doors.
either.
Don't even Kim
I
deserves.
don't
Kim
Part of that
deserves
is
to be on
because
office
you're not you're
restrictions.
into it bad.
Right, exactly though, but I try, like I catch every so often, but when I'm going through them, I can tell you, I'm a big one to slam the doors. And you can tell me a million times, I've heard you complain about the doors a million times, but I will still not catch that door. And it's just not something that sits in my mind. So I kind of get some of it, because it's not a priority at that moment in my mind.
So I think as a group, what I hear is, if you want to change specific things, find specific things you want to change. You're never going to be able to do it all.
I try not to do it all.
You can, but it's super helpful to focus on some things and put some of these practices into place and just see how it goes.
Well, and I feel like we do that. I feel like we'll focus on like 3 or 4 behaviors, like being dressed by a
Right.
certain time and signing the book and stuff like that. and they get to the point where they're doing it reasonably okay, and then we stop focusing on that. And we
Yes.
start focusing on something else, and then that just
We're
goes
back
to
to the thing that we just fixed.
But we talk a lot about like our clients, but it's the same when you manage people,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
So
We're
for
all the
me
same.
to, yeah, absolutely. So you can harp on something that I'm gonna say, or you're coaching a sport, doesn't matter. If I harp on defense, or I harp on, we need to make sure we're dressed nicely every day, guys, because I'll get on that sometimes. I'll send out the reminder of how we should look when we come to work, and then we'll do it for a while, and then we go back. You know, I mean, it's like, it's just this constant thing that you have to, and you guys don't change. Our population changes, so we even have to be more cognizant of that, because there's new people walking into check-in every day, and if their friend is never getting dressed, and they're like, oh shoot, I've only been here 3 days, I don't really know any better. I mean, so there's a lot of things we just have to like take into consideration, and it's just repeating that and doing it over and over and over.
And sometimes you have to reset too. You have to be like, okay, we let these things slip, we need to get right back to it and get refocused on what we want to do with it. And that's okay, that's human nature, is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Everybody gets comfortable, everybody gets life, it's fine. That's what happens. Like,
Yeah.
I was just sitting with the staff member yesterday, and I got done talking with her, and the supervisor looked at me and I said, we'll be back in May. This bought us like 2 months. Right?
Yeah.
So I just know that this person,
Absolutely right.
right, she's gonna get comfortable, and then she's gonna shoot off the Nastygram to the school district.
Uh-huh.
And I'm gonna be right back here saying, what are you doing? We just talked about this for the 17th
I mean, it can be
time.
as simple as like, we want to get paid, but we don't want to do our timesheets right. I mean, it's simple stuff, and that's,
Yeah, right.
and so we are just as, I mean,
We are just as,
maybe
this
that's
is-
not our priority. We came to work, other things were happening, I forgot to clock in, but we want to get, it's just,
right, but, and we get that cognitive overload
Absolutely.
too, right? Like, oh my god, I have so much stuff to
but I
do.
didn't realize how that's going to really mess up Kylie when she goes to do payroll.
Right.
Like, but they're not thinking that. You didn't go in thinking, I want to mess Kylie up, and I
No.
think we got to think like that with the clients, or
Right.
slamming of it, like, I don't know, it's just
Yeah,
it's
so
the way you
like,
start thinking.
here's my disclosure. I have credit card slips that are due to our accountant tomorrow, and I haven't done one of them yet. Are they going to be
She's
late?
probably
Yeah.
happy for you. Man.
And she's probably ready to murder me because I haven't turned them in yet. Right? So I'm on her mind that I'm doing it on purpose.
Yep.
Right? But I haven't sat down in a chair since Monday morning. So I haven't had like even a chance to think about that. Right? It's just the way my schedule's been. It's fine. But that's the thing, right? Like there's all this other stuff that's happening. And all of our brains work this way.
Mhm.
Right? So we have to understand what's happening. We have to look at that. How can we like make it as best? And all that I'm sharing with you are the very basic things that we can do to help get this going. Okay? So we're forging a positive social climate. We're teaching our social skills. We're increasing empathy. We talked all about that. Hey, good. That's the last one.
Hey, can you go back
Made
to
it.
this one?
Yes, I am. I just want to make sure I wasn't going to miss anything. Comma given there, that bothers me. Are you okay?
Yes.
I want to see if there's anything else I wanted to see on these. So what do you think? Do you guys want to talk about specific goals you want to pick now, or do you want to like kick it around?
Are you gonna give me a reward?
You got pizza.
No, that came from Kylie, not from you.
I know.
So that's not right, Paul.
You're right. It's not.
She said, Paul.
The run things,
Oh.
yes.
What do I have in here?
This is what do I have in, oh, you got a brain.
Oh, brain.
For all your
I
participation.
think it's hard to just like do right now, because I think depending on what your piece is
Sure.
in the organization, we have different
Roles and
things that we'd like them to work on.
okay.
Right, because I think if you talk to Kim, she'd be like, I'd love to walk into the kitchen one day and the fridges be taken care of appropriately.
I bet
Because
she
it's
would.
something she, has to deal with because they don't want to throw their food away. It's just a constant health and safety issue for
Right.
us.
Or I could
But I don't
automate
give a
it
shit
in the
about
morning.
the fridge.
Right, and I mean, you're not thinking about
I know,
kids,
right.
right?
Understandable.
Well, I think there's one thing that we can, the ones that do groups, I think that we can enforce the side conversations. And then the disrespect when someone is sharing that somebody else is talking. I mean, we could all work on that, because we all do groups, right?
But even the people doing groups, so the people that do participate or do something, maybe when they walk out, they get a ticket, they get a piece of candy, or I have something at the front where, hey, you 5 participated really well today, you get rewarded for that. You know, whatever it is that you, to make it not taking away that they were doing, whoever was doing the side conversations, they shouldn't get any reward, you just reward those that are doing what they should be doing in group. Or something, I mean, if that's a big, I don't know, whatever's going on in groups, because we could easily get some things. I mean, you got little things. They love lasting change stuff. I could get small gadgets. You know, they could be not that expensive.
They love pins.
Oh, they'll come to my office and ask for anything. I mean, no matter what's laid them off.
But I really think that it could be based on like department. Like, so I think that direct care would be focused on certain things that they see on a common basis. Clinical's going to see something else. Leadership may see something else.
You know?
Kim is kind of between the two, might see something else. I mean, I really would like to see what everybody's ideas would be. Like, maybe everybody think about it and write some things in an email, like send it out. You know, you can send it to me and I will format it and take a look at it.
We could have like a phone call or something, work through it together.
When we created our mission and our core values.
Yes.
And we had a meeting about that, we all participated, so everybody's opinion was valued and we were all included in that. I think if we did something like that where we put all our ideas on a board as a group and then we whittle through them and say, okay, what's most important, and we prioritize those things we want to accomplish, and then we bring it down from there, because that's how we did our
Well, that's how I
mission
came up
and
with
core
our strategic
values.
goals too. Like the first time I did it when I
Yes.
first started here, and we met with the board, and remember Heather, and we did all that, and we put up all the things we wanted to see happen at Lasting Change.
Right.
And then you kind of piece together like, okay, 15 people said this is something that's important, and we kind of talked
Right.
through each of the things.
Because
And we could do that
had-
here, like what are the things that our top 3 things, and we could start really focusing on them to like what's in, we all want to see, then we all know. So even if I see the behavior, or
Right.
you know, us that aren't in clinical and I don't see them all the time, but I see them doing something, like we could be participating in that too.
And we
you
could
know,
come together quarterly and reassess where we are with that, and then
Why don't you lead that,
establish new
Kim?
ones, and I'll lead
okay, that sounds
I'll be
fantastic.
happy to do it.
While you're
It's just
thinking
getting
about,
everybody together, that's
Yeah.
very difficult.
while
to
you're
do,
thinking
but-
about how are you tracking it, how do you want to measure it,
I don't know.
right? I'm
But
just
we'll come up, yeah, we'll
I'm throwing this out there because you need to do that stuff so you see if it's effective.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if you do this, let's put something out there, and you come back and you have like a chart to share with the staff, and you say, hey, we gave out 15,000 tickets, making this up, right? And we did X, Y, Z, and all this stuff, and our referrals or whatever we call them are down 20% last time. Do you think that would be impactful for everybody?
Well, yeah.
Right.
Well, we could manage the reps. I mean, you could look at that and see how that could be an indicator. I mean, and we could look at, we do the
Well, I
client
was thinking
surveys
about
too.
from the clinical end, like them just coming to their session when they're supposed to every week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that would be something that's easily countable,
Yeah,
measurable.
like we
Right,
could think
because
about
that-
some things we could measure.
You know, if they're in their session, they're going to be getting this stuff,
Right,
right? And then that's like a way to measure and track what's
like they're
happening.
being rewarded for showing up to something, which they should be getting rewarded because they should be getting here for
Right.
treatment. But we know that that's,
Yeah, you know.
we don't think that, we're not thinking like that at this point. But,
Here's a pen.
Here's a pen, here's a session. But we could start, yeah, I do think there's a lot of things we could look at to
Yeah.
measure that.
So I definitely think we could email you ideas, and everybody that's not here, we can have
But
them.
maybe your top three things you wanna target in the next quarter. And then we regroup, and then we figure out what we wanna do, and then we could just regroup in next quarter and see where we're, I just think that's a really good idea.
And while you're
Well
doing
done,
this,
Chief.
while everybody's thinking of those things, at the same time, you have to look at what you are going to do to make that happen.
Right.
We cannot rely on
Have
our
an action
clients to
plan.
do it, right? How are we going to stay consistent? How are we going to make them feel safe, while and successful while we do it? Right? Those kinds of things are like that key piece to it. Because we could come up with anything, like they need to come to the session 8 out of 10 times or else. Right? But how are we going to get that to happen? What is our accountable piece?
Mhm.
That's all, I'm done talking now. You guys did great. Any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts?
This was very helpful.
Okay. I'm glad.
I thought dopamine was related to amphetamines.
Kind of.
No, she didn't.
I thought it was a type of amphetamine. I don't know.
It kind of gives you a little.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, have you seen Kids at Christmas morning? Right? They're kind of on.
Yeah, they're on something.
They're on something. Right?
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
So I was